This is the second class meeting. I see I got 19 people online and only one physically here, which is fine. I know more people are going to come at 10:30 because there are people in other classes that are having serious problems setting up their machines and they want to come in and get hands-on help in a physical environment, which is fine. So we're here. This class is only going to go for 6 weeks. This is the second week. And so I just want to, those are the videos from last week. So we'll talk about searching and using fields, and then I'll demonstrate the projects, which are really quite easy. Notice that add request is not possible. Yes, ACORN, if you want to add to this CNET 50, I think because it's only a 6-week class, they made the add period incredibly short. So if you want to add, you'd have to fill out a late add form, and I'm happy to sign it. I do not know what the college will do with it. It's a good question, and after the lecture I can even look up that form, and maybe I should put a link to it on this page for people that want to add. All right, so let's talk about searching in fields, and then we'll do some hands-on. So I should have the, let me get the PDF from Splunk, and by the way, here it is. And let me mention where you get these training materials for people who didn't understand it last time, which can happen. Down here there's a link, and you need a name and password there, which I put on the board here, and I'm going to put it in the chat too. I just don't want to put it in the video, just so Splunk doesn't get mad at me for spreading these materials too widely. But those are the materials from a version of the Splunk course from a couple of years ago. They seem to be updating it. So anyway, this is good enough. You certainly learned what a couple of years ago Splunk regarded as the official information here, so that will do until we have the latest version of the Splunk course that they're currently working on. So last time we already installed Splunk. You saw that. We didn't go going through the module, but we did it. And we imported data, the 3 pieces of data. So, all right. I see someone says they're not able to submit the assignment. Okay, if you can't turn something in, you can always put it in the internal email in Canvas. That's one way to do it. And we'll try and fix any problem at the Canvas. If the Canvas doesn't let you upload a file or something, that tends to happen. Various mistakes are possible. Good. Anyway, let me know when bad things happen, and we will get them fixed. Although sometimes it takes longer than it should. I remember adding the non-CCSF servers to my classes. I did it a few times and it kept vanishing. I'm afraid because I'm updating my website from 2 different machines and I'm not always getting the latest version. But anyway, let me know and I try to fix all the mistakes as they pass by. So when you type a search into the search bar, it will try to help you, just like a lot of things do these days. It'll show matches to a few words here and try to help you type things in. You can put a pipe in there. A pipe is the same thing it is in basically Linux, or for that matter PowerShell. It'll take the output of the previous search and feed it into something so you can do something like make a chart or a list of the items. All right. And I don't know which one I'm on. Let's see if I can do this. All right, that'll do. All right. If you put in a pipe, it will then show you commands you can use like count to count how many items there are of a certain value and things like that. Pipe lets you feed it into something that will make some sort of summary of the data. And by the way, this is technically using a language called SPL Squunk Query Language or something like that. I don't know. Everybody does this. All these security monitoring products have their own version of SQL, which they give a different name to. It's essentially a language, which is very much like SQL, the standard database language. And all right. So in full mode, then you can see more information about your query here, and we'll do this live and see how it looks. All right. There's a search assistant. This will also try to help you match parentheses. By the way, one thing that has got me a bunch of times, if you want a Boolean keyword like and or, it must be in capitals, and when you get it right, it will change orange. If you type in or in lowercase, it will not change colors, and it will not have the effect of a logical or. It will just look for the word or on the page. So that's one gotcha that can get you. All right, so if you match these things, it does a search. The search is done when you see a check mark up here, and here it tells you how many were found. That's something like 1,942. So you find events, and here's a list of all the events. And over here is a list of fields that it found in a large number of events, and you can click any of these fields to get a summary of that particular field. They're always shown in reverse chronological order with the newest event first. and usually many pages of events. And then there's a timeline that shows you the timeline of these events. So there was a few events here, and then a lot more events here, and then not very many here. And you could double click one of these to restrict the timeline to that area if you like to. Someone says some of the screen is cut off. Well, yeah, it does look that way, doesn't it? Thank you for telling me. Let me drag this up a bit. Good. And let me fit in the official stuff. I can tell by looking at OBS without this delay. Yeah, thank you for telling me. The just projected part of the screen is only there. You know, I might be able to fix that. Yeah, I think I'll just figure out what part of the screen to use. It's the simplest answer, which is a little bit higher. There, that's it. Good. Good. Thanks for telling me. Now I better make it a little bit smaller here. All right. That's pretty annoying. Let me see if I can adjust it in OBS. Because now in the room it's kind of small. Looks like I cannot easily adjust it in OBS. Okay, we'll put up with this. There's always something. Okay. So, the events are here, and it always extracts time and a lot of other metadata like timestamps and source type and index and other things like IP addresses. These are the ones that are always there: timestamp, host, source type, and index, and the rest are parsed according to how you tell it when you import the data, which we've done before. When you import the data, you tell it what type of data it is so it can find more things. So over here, you choose the time range. The most common thing we're going to do in this class is just choose all range, all time. Here you can choose different search modes, which really doesn't matter very much. And here's your search events. The number of events appear here, and down here appear the events. And there's a place where you can pick, just zero in on certain events. And you can also select fields over here and narrow down your search that way. And we'll do that in the hands-on in just a few minutes. All right. So when you mouse over search results, you can highlight something, and then it'll say add to search, exclude from search, and so on. So you can find something interesting that you like in the search, and you can just click on that part of the event to narrow it down there. And this is the modern way to do it. It's very nice. Makes it very easy to zero in on things. Now you can also just put everything up in if you like to do command line, you can just write the command line search and narrow down everything that way. But the whole point of Splunk is that this graphical display and the fact that it's interactive makes it easier for you to narrow down on what you want to find. So, all right. There are various view options of search. You can see a summary of events here, and we'll try those. There's a few different views to show the events. You can select a specific time. You don't need to use all time. You can go here and choose pre-custom date ranges or last 24 hours, or you can even go and specify start at exactly this date and time and end at exactly this date and time. And when we do the boss of the SOC stuff, you'll see there are conditions under which you actually want to narrow the search down to a period of just a few seconds. And Splunk gives you a lot of handy ways to do that. One thing, however, that is a real problem is time zones. If you have a set of data from a different time zone or an enterprise set of data from a big enterprise that covers many time zones, then you can get confused about exactly what time something happened. The time you see in Splunk is your local time zone, which might not be the time zone appropriate for the data. This is why a lot of people that are real serious about this just put everything in Greenwich time everywhere and learn to work in Greenwich time. That's another way to do it. That's unfamiliar to people at first, but it helps solve this serious time zone problem. Another thing horrible about time zones is daylight savings time. If you cross that barrier again, you can get very confused. All right, so time range, you got time at, snaps to the time you identify. So this is at minus 30 minutes at H. This is round up to the nearest hour, and then look 30 minutes before that. So that's these funny ways to abbreviate time. You have earliest and latest, so you can give it the earliest time and the latest time. So this will look back from 2 days ago up to the beginning of today. That's what this will do. And this will go look back to a specific date and time. So you can put those up here. I find it much easier to use the graphical environment to arrange these dates and times, but you can do it in the query string with this format. And so here's the timeline showing these green bars, and it shows you the distribution of events, and you can mouse over for a summary of how many events for that day, or single click to filter results for that time period. And you can click and drag across a series of bars to restrict the time to that zone. And there's other controls here. You can have a lot of things to zoom in and zoom out on the time. All right. Every search is also called a job, and you can save the search. And the reason you might want to do this is you might have some search you wish to do on a periodic basis, like to provide some kind of summary for management of how many sales there were this week, or how many login failures there were this week, or something like that. And so you can make a saved job. And if the job is taking a long time to finish, which is a big problem in real enterprise Splunks, then you might want to pause it and give one job more priority. For what we're doing here, the jobs are all pretty simple, and that shouldn't have much trouble with that, but it can be a problem with big enterprise networks. When you save something, you can specify who's allowed to see it, whether it's private or public, and for how long it will be saved, either 10 minutes or 7 days, or to see how long you want to save your search results. And you can share search jobs with other people, which is something you might do. You might have a technical person set up these jobs and then share it with somebody else who will make the reports every week. I used to do this all the time when I was a database analyst with much simpler products than Splunk, but I had exactly this situation. I would set up queries that would provide the weekly reports, and then somebody else who was less technical would prepare the weekly reports and send them off to management, just using my saved queries. You can export the search results in a variety of formats. You might have to do this to feed them into another product like a spreadsheet or a database for further analysis. And you can view your saved jobs, and we'll do this in the hands-on. You can view your search history. All right, so that's the basics of search, and then we should talk about fields. So fields are the name of an item of data. Fields in databases are the name of what you call columns, things like area code, action, and all this jazz. You have timestamps and source types we've talked about, and you have other things in your events like IP addresses and port numbers and so on. So you can search for a word in Splunk, and it will just look for that word matching anywhere in an event, like grep would in Linux, or you can say field equals value, and then it will look just in that field for just this value. And the professionals highly recommend this technique. This technique is faster, uses much less CPU time. Just looking for a word like www1 alone is very slow by comparison. So it is more professional and faster to use field equals value when you can. So Splunk will automatically discover many fields. When you imported the data for the hands-on project, you imported 3 kinds of data like database access logs and web logs, and Splunk would try to automatically recognize the data. And if it recognizes it, it has pre-programmed ways to extract the fields. But if you import data from some unusual device that Splunk doesn't recognize, you may have to teach it how to pick the fields out of it. All right. So you identify your data-specific fields. All right, like status equals 200 for web data responses, that sort of thing. And so once you've done a query of any kind, you have the fields sidebar here, and you can, interesting fields are fields that occur in at least 20% of the events, and you can just click on any of these and it will tell you how many different values this field has. So here, the first one, there's only appeared with one type, but this one here has 2 unique values. This one has 17. So by looking at that, you can decide which one of these would be an interesting way to filter the data, to get more information about the data. And we'll do a lot of this live soon. So, all right, you can also choose fields and make it a selected field to appear in the top of the list if you want to. All right, and that's easy enough to do and not terribly important. All right. You can go down to all fields, and you can make another field selected if you want to search for something that is not actually found in more than 20% of the data. All right, and I don't think we'll bother talking about the details of that, but here's how you use field in searches. So something like client IP equals 141 to 66. This is the most efficient way to zero in on just that. But the problem is that will only work if the name of this thing is always client IP. And typically when I look at databases, there are several different devices reporting IP addresses, and they use different names for the IP field. That's why, even though it uses up more CPU, I frequently just put in the answer, the 141, without the field name, to make sure I get every event that refers to that IP address. That's why you have to be aware what you're doing when you do this. You're only going to see fields that have a field with that name that has exactly that value. There might be other events of interest that you're missing that way. All right, and so, by the way, you can refer to IP addresses with CIDR, Common Internet Domain Routing. That's this /24 system. If you take your Cisco or your Net Plus classes, you'll learn about this. This is a way to refer to IP address ranges. If you don't know about it, don't worry about it. You can just use a star, one dot star, to mean one followed by anything. But the more precise way to refer to that is /24, referring to 24 bits of 1 in the subnet mask. Anyway, that's the whole point of Splunk. It knows all the different technical ways to refer to things. And all right, you've got host not equal www3. And here you've got source port greater than 1,000, source ports less than 4,000. You know, it's smart enough to know the simple relational operators like greater than and less than and such. All right, and let me see, did I skip a page? All right, we talked, that's, okay, good. So here, okay, this one here, not equals, returns events where a status field exists, but it's not equal to 200. But not status equals 200 will also return events where status field does not exist. So that can be confusing. But the point here is it has to find a value of status and then compare it to 200 and show it's not equal. This one here considers whether status equals 200, and if that is not true, it reverts the event. So that's how it works. That's one thing that can confuse you a little bit. And that's related to the issue I brought up several times here. The problem with Splunk is actually a problem with the data, not with Splunk. The data you're getting is typically not really all formatted the same way and doesn't use the same field names in every event, and that causes these confusions. All right. So here, for example, the query not status equals 200 finds 86,000 events, but status not equal to 200 finds a smaller number of events because it only finds events that contain a status field, and this one includes all the events that do not contain a status field. All right. And of course, if every event does contain that field, then these two would have the same results. All right. And I'd like to get this to move down. All right. There's a fast, smart, and verbose mode of searches, which just determines how much information you get about the search. I've never really worried about that much. Anyway, that's all I want to say about these slides. Let me stop this one and go to demonstrating the projects. So I'll stop this recording.